Temperatures are forecast to get down below minus 40 degrees tonight here in the Canadian Rockies, and my goal is to sleep outside in a tent and not only survive, but be comfortable. I'm gonna be using my Extreme Winter Camping Sleep System. I've never used it in these temperatures before. Actually, this is the lowest I've ever camped outside before in my life. And because of that, I'm gonna be just a short distance away from my car. That way, if I do need to abort the mission, I can get to my car, warm up, and if needed, drive out to safety. I also have my Garmin InReach with me just in case my car doesn't start. I don't think I've ever tried to start my car at these temperatures before. This trip is quite dangerous and I want to be mitigating that danger as much as possible. Before I get the system that I'm going to be using as a sleep system tonight in order to try and brave these minus 40 degrees temperatures, I'm going to be setting up my tent right over behind me here. I brought a hot tent setup. I'm going to be using a 3F UL titanium stove and then a One Tigris tent. I'm really hoping that I can get the stove and hot tent warm enough in order to keep me comfortable to hang out before I want to go to bed tonight, because I frankly don't want to be getting inside of my sleep system at 5 o'clock when temperatures are supposed to start really dropping. But we'll see. I've also never used a hot tent in these kind of temperatures. When I'm out on these really cold trips, I often get asked why I do it. Why do I go out and kind of expose myself to these really cold temperatures and what some people would probably consider type 2 fun, very uncomfortable scenarios and stuff that most people just wouldn't do. And to be honest, a lot of it is just all about getting outdoors. It doesn't matter whether I'm hiking, backpacking, skiing, snowshoeing, canoeing, and whether it's minus 30 or plus 30, getting outdoors is really recharges me. So whenever I get out here, it just does so much good things for my mental health and just my outlook on everything, and usually gives me good time to think and get things into perspective. I also really like to push my limits and boundaries, and winter camping and especially getting down into these really low temperatures allows me to do that. I can get out here and move the needle with regards to my backpacking skills and comfortability in different kind of scenarios. So those are the two reasons really why I get out here in these cold temperatures. Hopefully that answers your question. Let me know in the comments why you guys like to go winter camping, and if you don't go winter camping, why not? In order to stay warm while I'm setting up camp, I have a pretty warm clothing system. I'm wearing a merino wool toque, and then I have this synthetic fill parka from Decathlon. This is the warmest jacket I own. It has the fake fur hood in order to block wind and kind of create a bubble of warmth around your face. And then underneath this, because it's so warm, all I need is a merino wool shirt. So I have a merino wool long sleeve shirt that I'm gonna sleep in this as well. I'll go over my entire sleep system clothing as we talk about the sleep system later. And then I also have merino wool pants. And then you can see I'm wearing pants I get asked about all the time. These are the Outdoor Research Trailbreaker 2 pants. And I just have the merino wool underneath those. My legs are a little bit cold, so I probably could get away with a pair of fleece pants underneath these as well. I've got a few more things to set up inside of my tent, some comfort items that I'm gonna share with you guys. Then we'll get the sleep system going, and I'll share with you guys a little bit more about this trip and how I'm gonna try and stay warm down to minus 40 degrees tonight. It still seems kind of crazy to me. So I just did a temperature check. It's minus 30 right now. I'm gonna be using this thermometer inside of the hot tent just to track how warm it's getting inside. And then I have a Bluetooth thermometer that I have outside the tent here that is linked to my phone that I'm going to track the temperature throughout the entire night, so I can tell you guys tomorrow morning how cold it actually got. As you can see, I brought my Helinox Chair Zero. There's a few other comfort items that I brought with me just to kind of make life a little bit more comfortable inside of the hot tent. This is the FlexTail Tiny Pump X. So this is what I use to inflate my sleeping pad in order to not get a whole bunch of warm air into it, because as soon as that warm air starts cooling off, the sleeping pad will start to deflate. So you don't want that, better to use a little pump. And what's nice about this pump is that it also has a light. So I can just hang this in the top of my tent, and then I have a little lantern for the course of the night. I don't need to have a headlamp on the entire time. And then one of my favorite things that I brought with me that's gonna be super useful, especially when the nights are really long, is this trekking pole that has a GoPro mount on it with a phone holder. So I can just put my phone right in there and then stick that into the ground, and then I can lay back in my chair and watch a movie or a TV show over the course of the night. Very nice to have. As you can see, I also have the hot tent. I chopped a whole bunch more wood. And what's really important when you're out on winter trips is a good meal. You want a good meal in order to stay warm. Eating before bed is kind of like putting fuel into the furnace. And for this trip, I brought with me another Wild Mountain Eats. So this is the black bean stew. Really looking forward to this. The last meal I had, the lentil curry, was delicious. So I'll put a link to their Instagram in the video description so you guys can go check them out. They're based in Calgary where I live, so really happy to support them and check out their products. And that brings us to the sleep system. This is gonna be the key thing tonight, because I'm not gonna have the stove going all night. I don't wanna have to wake up and put wood into the stove, so I'm just gonna let it die down. So I need to stay warm at -40 with just my sleep system and clothes. And I've changed into the clothes I'm gonna be wearing tonight. On top, I'm wearing the same merino wool that I was wearing before. It's a 200 weight merino wool. And then I have this Patagonia Ultra Alpine down sweater. So this is only 150 grams, super warm. I'm gonna be wearing it to bed because I'm gonna need that extra little bit of layer. And then for my legs, I'm wearing 260 weight merino wool, and then these down pants from Nature Hike. I'll put all this stuff in the video description so you guys go check it out. Right now on my feet, I'm wearing these Mech Expedition booties just to keep my feet nice and warm. But I have Darn Tough socks, and then these Torrid Apex socks from Enlightened Equipment. So I just want my feet to be nice and toasty, so I'm gonna be wearing these Torrid socks to bed as well. It's a synthetic fill. So as my feet sweat and moisture is coming out of my foot, it's not gonna be affecting these as much as if they're down booties. So really like these. And let's get to the sleep system, because that's what you guys are here for, right? So this is the same sleep system that I did an entire video on. It features this reflective mat on the bottom here, and then at the base of the sleeping pad system is this foam mat by Nemo, the Switchback. And then I'm using the Thermarest X-Therm sleeping pad. This has an R value of 6.9. These three pads and mats combine to create a very solid base to the system. Usually the weakest part of a sleep system is that ground insulation. A lot of people, they'll just use their summer sleeping pad or something that doesn't have a high enough R value. I know at these really cold temperatures, I'm gonna need as much insulation for the ground as possible. And then on the head end, I have my Hike Ensure pillow here. This has a little bit of a foam layer on top, which helps insulate your head. And then the main piece of insulation for this entire system is the Thermarest Polar Ranger sleeping bag. This sleeping bag is rated to -30, and it has a whole bunch of features that I think make it very effective at cold temperatures. It has a snorkel at the head end here, so this wraps around your face and creates a pocket of air around your face. It's made of synthetic material, so you're not getting a whole bunch of moisture buildup. It is a down sleeping bag throughout the rest. And that has these armholes here too. So you can use those to vent heat out of your body if you're a little bit too warm. And sometimes that happens. You go to bed, it's -30, and then it gets down to -40 over the course of the night. And then on top of the Polar Ranger, I have another layer. This is a synthetic quilt from Enlightened Equipment. This is the Revelation Apex, and it's gonna attach to the sleeping pad with these buckles right here. So that's gonna eliminate drafts over the course of the night by keeping the quilt nice and snug to the sleeping pad. And this is gonna provide a couple benefits for me. It's gonna add extra insulation, and then it's also gonna manage moisture and condensation a lot better than the down that's in the sleeping bag. The outer quilt moves the dew point of condensation out further away from the down of the sleeping bag, so any sort of condensation is going to happen inside the synthetic material of the quilt, and the quilt synthetic material is going to handle that a lot better. I'm going to have my dinner, hang out, and I'm going to check in with you guys tomorrow morning. I'll let you know how cold it got last night, and how comfortable I was or uncomfortable over the course of the evening. Good morning. It got cold last night, but before we get into that, I want to get the hot tent going, the stove going, because it's still really cold. I want to get some water boiling so I can have a nice hot coffee and then just kind of warm up inside the tent here, and I'll tell you about how the night went and how the sleep system performed. So I left some water in the pot here. It froze overnight, obviously. So we'll put that on there and get it melting. I've recommended this Nalgene koozie before, and I've used it down to minus 20 degrees Celsius, and it's kept the water inside from freezing, but with the temperatures that we got down to last night, the water froze inside of here. So I don't have any water that isn't frozen right now. The temperature this morning isn't that bad, minus 15 degrees Celsius, which is just above 0 degrees Fahrenheit for you Americans out there. Really nice having the thermometer for doing all the conversions for you guys on this trip. I'm gonna get things cleaned up a little bit here, and then I'll pull my sleep system outside the tent and we can talk about how it performed last night and what those temperatures got down to. Before I get a ton of comments as we talk about the sleep system, I know the Xtherm is upside down. Doesn't really make a big difference. The part that I have facing up is a 70 denier, whereas the bottom is a 30 denier, and that's the only difference between how the sleeping pad's gonna perform. But overall, I slept pretty warm last night. Temperatures steadily dropped from minus 30 to minus 40 and topped out at minus 50 degrees Celsius. I recorded it all on my Bluetooth thermometer, and that's the coldest temperature I've ever slept outside at by a good 15 degrees. I was toasty warm. At times I thought I was gonna actually get too warm. I was wearing exactly what I have on right now, my down sweater and pants, and then merino wool base layers, and then my Torrid socks. And yeah, everything performed great. I think a big factor last night was moisture management. I had a lot of condensation, frozen condensation accumulating on my quilt, as well as the snorkel of the sleeping bag. So having the synthetic quilt and then the snorkel really kind of took this sleep system to the next level. I'm not sure it'd perform as well if I was using a system like 2 down sleeping bags stuffed inside of each other. I was a little bit worried about the ground temperature, especially after my last trip where I tried to go down to minus 30 degrees while also being ultralight. But my ground insulation was perfect. I did not feel the ground at all. Really, I just wasn't cold at all last night, which was awesome. Definitely pushed my limits, and it was cool to see that I can get out in extreme winter conditions and still survive and be comfortable, especially with the hot tent that we have behind me here. If you want to see that trip where I try to use my summer ultralight gear to winter camp, then go check it out right up in the corner there. It doesn't quite go as planned, and I definitely learned some lessons on that trip.